Good. Thank you very much. So these are just two of the many solos in this piece, right? And both of the pieces you chose today, I mean, those are two of the biggest concertmaster solos in the repertoire, the Scheherazade and Ein Heldenleben, and we'll get to the Strauss later. Both of these pieces, you're as the concertmaster, you're playing a role. So it's not simply about playing it well, which you do very well, and it's very, very nicely played. It also has to really tell a specific story. And that's a little bit unusual for the orchestra repertoire, that we have these two pieces which are the sort of the biggest concertmaster solos, and they're very much about telling a story. In this case, it's the story of Scheherazade, who is trying to keep her husband from getting rid of her by telling a different tale every night and leaving the ending unknown so that he has to wait until the next night. So you know this story of Scheherazade, right? And so we have to, with the way we play this, take on this character of this woman who is basically telling things in such an interesting, fascinating way that the listener, or in the Sultan, so to say, has to keep listening. And that's a particular challenge because basically we get the same music every single time. It's beautiful, but it comes over again. This comes in the first movement. Then we have here this little solo later in the first movement, and what you played at the beginning of the second movement, same thing, but different key, comes in the third movement. And again, and at the very end, beginning of the fourth movement, end of the fourth movement too. So it's the same theme many, many different times. And so as the concertmaster playing this solo, it's your job to find every time a different little way of telling the story. And so I would encourage you to be very creative with, not just play it well, but be very creative with how you phrase it, how you turn it, different colors. You know, we have this second movement opening here. First of all, I want you to think, what's the difference between this opening and the beginning of the first movement, the first solo you have? How is it different?
I think it's a little bit more comfortable because it's the second time.
Yeah, I think so. And also, yes, very good. And also, I think because of the key and where the register, the first one in the very beginning of the first movement is somehow sweet and very, very tender. Here, we've already had a bit of the story. We had the first movement, and now you come in. So I'd like a little thicker, fuller sound than what you would play at the beginning of the first movement. So that means a little wider vibrato. And the other thing to think about is we have always this repeated note. Long note and then fast notes. Long note, fast notes. Long. Can you approach, those long notes always have a different harmony underneath them with the harp playing. Can you approach them in different ways? So it's not always gets a little bit boring. So maybe, or you can do a replacement finger. You can do, there are many different options. And I don't want to tell you the way you have to play it, but I want you to be very creative in this. And you know, also in a sense that you can almost make it up on the spot. You know, you're coming up with a story, and you have an idea, and you play it a little bit differently than you planned. Okay, can we try here? Yeah? Yeah, good, good. Now, so you wanted the third one to be less, right?
I think so.
You think so? That's the problem.
Yeah.
You think so, but you're not 100% convinced. So I, as the listener, thought, I think she wants the last one to be less, but she's not convinced either. If you want it to be less, really commit to that. And so that means then you played a little bit less, but you kept the vibrato just as intense. Maybe if the last one is less, the vibrato has to be less intense, you know? You know, it dies out a bit, and then... And then after that, can you start from... Really start from piano, so you have a big line all the way to the top. If we start too much, then there's nowhere to go with the big phrase. Okay? Good. Just careful that sometimes you let, because if you're using more bow and more vibrato, you let particular notes stand out. So, and that is, it sounds very beautiful, but it takes away from the long phrase. So if I do, you see, I take out, I show a little bit different note there. Maybe, one idea. And then here, now not, because that we've heard this B many times already. So we have to keep the long phrase. We tried last time here. And also with the bowing, don't always have to change in the same place. I think this can be quite free. Yeah, good. Now let it die away, and we start from pianissimo here. Make a big long phrase to the top. Very good. I'd only one little more detail. Can you go all the way to the C sharp? To me, it sounds like you go to the, you know, but this is already less. Because he writes tenuto, and then we prepare the next entrance there. Just the cadenza part. Good. Yeah, and then you've earned the time on that C sharp to change the color. Yeah. Exactly. Good. Very nice. So then, now we go to the third movement solo here. Same thing with this opening. Yeah, very creative. You know, surprise me with your timing, with the colors. Then, once we get here, to me, you play too fast. Now this is accompaniment, the next part here. Da, 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 da. So, not the way you play is a little bit. Can you think of a long phrase through it? So. So you're just accompanying this ya da 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 da, and of course you can show little harmonies, but not too of a hectic character. It still needs to sing through this. Okay? Let me try from here. And give me some, just surprise me with your fingering, do something a little bit crazy here. Not that crazy, but. Good. now it's like you make it up on the spot. Now your solo here. Good, good. So this is better here, and now you can show a little bit more of the harmonies. I play it a little bit differently. I don't re-articulate the A. Either way is okay, but I just like the way it sounds better. But more tension here. Now he writes here, cantare con forza. I think the whole thing can stay up. Play to the C. So don't come away before. You do all the way to the. And then don't diminuendo too early. It's much too early where he writes there. Has to stay up. And then the next one here can have a lot more crescendo. So here, say bow. So everything has to be a little bit bigger canvas, you know. Think a little bit more ego here. You know, you're taking control of it. This is one thing to remember also with concertmaster solos is when you're playing them in the orchestra, most of the time as concertmaster you're sitting and leading the section, and then when you have a solo, suddenly you have to have the spotlight on you, and immediately you have to change something in the sound and the expression that you're doing that everybody realizes something is different happening. Otherwise, it sounds like just another violinist who plays very well, suddenly is playing by themselves. But we have to immediately think, oh, this is a solo, and so everything has to be a little more, you have to think everything a little bit bigger, more time, more expression, so that it comes out of the orchestral texture.